good one. So it's not just me today. I do have my regular co-host Jess with me, but just before, we've had a technical difficulty. So we will be updating that. So for the time being, you just have me. So anyway, welcome back to all our regulars. Nice to see you virtually all again, and to any new pour and sippers, welcome. We are an open community for all you guys to try new whiskies and kind of broaden your horizons, your whiskey horizons. And please get involved with us tonight. Please get involved with your tasting notes, any questions you have for our guests. We have 3 wonderful guests today, trying and tasting 3 beautiful drams. So the order of proceedings today is we are going to be starting with Bruichladdich, and I will be interviewing Bill from Bruichladdich. Then we are going to be heading over to try an Islay whiskey called Scarabus, a blended whiskey. And then we're going to try a boutique whiskey, and we've got Dave with us once again. Welcome back, Dave. And we're trying the 4-year-old Millstone. So that's really exciting. And then last but not least, me and Jess will do a very quick whistle-stop tour of the last 2 drams, the Lagavulin 8 and the Turntable Track Purple Haze. Lots of comments coming in already. Richard Wingrove, good evening all. Joe F, good evening all. Bob Byers, evening all. Jester, before we get going, can I recommend a tour of the Bere Distillery, which I did last Friday? A brilliant couple of hours. Great shout. That is 5 minutes from my house, that distillery. So I also recommend it. Yeah, sorry, I'll just trying to work out what's going on here. So without further ado, I think we should welcome our first guest for the evening, Bill from Bruichladdich. How's it going?
Yeah, not bad. Thanks for having me. Hello to everyone as well.
You are very welcome. Nice to see you. Whereabouts are we talking to you from today?
From South London, just now.
South London.
Yeah.
Yes, whereabouts?
In the land of Peckham. My logo is called the Nag's Head as well, so it all ties in nicely.
Very nice. So for those of us, because you've not been on before, so for those who don't know, just talk to us a little bit about yourself, about how you found yourself in this industry and how you found yourself working for Bruichladdich.
Yeah, of course. It was actually kind of a happy accident. I was studying up in Aberdeen to go offshore to go on the rig. So I did my degree in electrical engineering, and I kind of started working in bars at the time and realized I enjoyed that a lot more. And then I had the opportunity to work in a hotel bar down in London, where I worked for 2 to 3 years. And then from there, I kind of jumped onto the brand side of things. Whiskey, with considering where I'm from, it's very much in the heart. So whiskey is where I wanted to move to. And after working in bars, it's a natural progression to go into brand ambassador work. And when the Bruichladdich job came up, it was a brand that I fell in love with, being a bartender. So it was very much wanted the job, and I was lucky to get the position. So that's a very quick way of moving into it.
Cool. I'm sure more happens in between.
Yeah, there's a few, but yeah, that's very quick. Meant to be on the rigs, but not anymore. So we just
okay, cool. So talk to us a little bit about Bruichladdich. Give us a little Bruichladdich 101.
Yeah, of course. So Bruichladdich, the way to look at it, well, a lot of people see it as a very kind of new brand, like sort of a new whiskey. It's not. It's one of the oldest distilleries, sitting back at 1881 on the west side of Islay. We're not going to go from 1881 all the way up, but the distillery closed in 1994. And in 2001, 2 gentlemen, Simon Coughlin and Mark Rayner. Mark Rayner went on to do Waterford as well, which is a fantastic Irish whiskey. So you see, if you look at Waterford and Classic Laddie, Bruichladdich, Classic Laddie, you can see the same sort of idea. But at the time, 2001, them and some investors purchased the distillery, and with the fantastic help of Jim McEwen as well, who joined over from Bowmore, and kind of really started to, a funny story about it, actually. When you bought the distillery, the price of the distillery wasn't based on the actual building. It was based on the casks that were left. So we had about 6,500 casks dating back to like 1962 all the way up. So if you ever see our black arts or our rare cask releases, that's stuff that we didn't make. So it is really a taste of history if you get the chance to purchase that or even try it. So, and then Jim McEwen joined as well in 2001. And from there, it's been completely focused on locality, Scottish barley and terroir. Simon Coughlin and Mark Rayner came from the wine industry. So I think what's confused them the most when they got into whiskey was, why does no one talk about barley? Everyone seems to talk about the flavor of a cask, the flavor of water, the look, like the region, everything else, but not the actual barley. So from there, we've been focused on terroir all the way through, from our classic laddie, which is the big aqua bottle. The reason why it's aqua is Jim McEwen says at a certain time, the loch and dow, the loch in the middle of Islay looks aqua. At a certain time, I don't know how much you have to drink to see it, but hopefully in the Feast Islay Festival next couple of weeks, I'll see it as well. And yeah, so we obviously have the botanist as well, which is one of our fantastic gins that we have. And we kind of really push on with Octomore and Port Charlotte and our barley expressions. What's great about Bruichladdich is it's always innovating, which is really important in the whiskey industry, to keep pushing boundaries and just see what happens, to be honest.
So talk about innovation and just, I mean, you kind of touched on it about terroir and how, it's not considered that important as we currently stand in the whiskey industry. Why is that?
Yeah, so it's that I think me answering this is more my opinion because I can't speak for the whole whiskey.
Please give us your opinion.
But I think for the amount of whiskey distilleries we have and the lands that of Scotland is quite small, it's impossible for us to grow local and use local barley. So for decades, it's basically been where they can get the cheapest barley from, the strongest yield, distill it, put it into casks, and then talk about the cask and not really talk about the terroir. Whereas we're in the opportunity to really highlight that. So we started sticking to 100% Scottish barley, and we believe barley matters. Now it's all good and well us saying barley matters when we talk about classic laddie, but this is why we did our barley expressions, to really show you when you try them side by side, it actually does make a difference. It's a lot easier for terroir to come out in wine because wine's quite a lower percentage than whiskey. So when you're distilling something so high, sometimes it's hard to pick out those really soft notes of the terroir, the turf, the ground, the weller. But with our barley expressions, you can really see the different types of barley really speak up. And yeah, it's something that's kind of been in the Bruichladdich blood since 2001. It's kind of the reason why we're B Corp credited as well. It's not just done by sustainability with B Corp. It's actually done by community and the way you treat your staff. We're the highest employer in Islay at the moment. Well, technically the highest employer is the council, but on an island of about 3,500 plus people, you're not going to be the highest employer than the council. But straight after the council is us. We're employing about over 200 people at the moment. We age on Islay, we bottle on Islay, and we distill on Islay. So it's been a great journey, to be fair. And
absolutely. And I mean, talk to us about. So obviously tonight we're trying one particular barley varietal. But talk to us about the ones in the range that we have. So we have the Islay barley, we also have the Bere barley, and then there's also another one as well, the organic.
Yes, there's actually organic barley, which is from Midcool Farm up in Inverness. A funny story, Midcool Farm is right behind my house where I grew up in Inverness. Okay. I've actually gone through that barley a few times after a few beers when I was younger, walking home. So it's kind of gone full circle for me a little bit.
We had different ways home on our night outs. Mine was
when you're in the north of the Highlands, is not much to do. So we have Islay barley, which is an expression of barley grown in Islay. Organic, which is just focused on it's like single origin from Midcool Farm up in Inverness. And then we have our Bere barley as well. What I do want to note though, before we go into the Bere, the Islay barley and the Bere is one, like those two whiskies to try side by side is really interesting. Bear in mind, they've kind of shared the same sort of style of cask, the same age. The only thing that's different is the barley. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to barley, barley itself wasn't really grown in Islay since about World War II. So when we came in, we started working with the local farmers in 2004, started growing from turf, from ground up to harvest, to malting, to distilling, to aging, to drinking. And then now it's gone from one farm to about 22 farms in Islay. And we work very closely with about 14 to 15 of them very closely.
Okay, so we're talking tonight about Bere barley. So talk to us what that is, what we can expect the flavour profiles of that to be, and also why it's very rarely used as well.
Yeah, so Bere barley was the whiskey that actually got me into Bruichladdich. It was the whiskey that I tried when, okay, hold on, this isn't just marketing. It does actually make a difference. There is method to the madness. So Bere barley itself is one of an ancient grain in Scotland. It was one of the oldest sort of grains that used to make Bere, which is obviously the original sort of whiskey. Now, Beer barley, it's like I said, it's an ancient grain, and the way we looked at it in our barley expressions, it was the third pillar of our barley expression. We went from Isla, organic, and then we went into this. We actually work with the Highlands and Islands Institute for Barley, so an agronomy Barley Institute, which is kind of led by Dr. Peter Martin. So Dr. Martin, not the one from Port Isaac or whatever the show that your mum watches, but not Dr. Martin. But we used Dr. Peter Martin. We've worked with 4 different farms up in Orkney to kind of bring back Bere barley in general. We kind of looked at it as a past, present, and future. Bere barley having such a strong past, it's nice to kind of have a nod to what the original whiskey was sort of being used and how what barley was sort of being made with. What barley was creating onto whiskey itself. Now you have about 10 recommended, recommended barley types, and only about 3 of them kind of get used. And they're normally 2-row concerto barleys, whereas Bere barley is a 6-row barley. This means it is literally does what it says in the tin. If you see Bere and concerto, for example, beside each other, 2 rows against 6 rows. Bere barley is so heavy it actually bends down. So if you ever see a Bere barley field, you'll see the actual barley heads itself looking down south to the ground. Now, the issue with Bere barley is that we have 6 rows, which is less carbohydrates, less fermented sugars, which means less alcohol. So the yield is actually quite low. Now, the yield itself is really tough. And this is where we kind of looked into the future. It's actually really important to keep Bere alive. It's really good for barley breeders, especially with climate change as well. It's good for experimenting how you can keep barley types growing. Now, a lot of barley types kind of come and fade in about decades or few. There's so many, but the ancient types such as Bere will remain. There's stories that originally it came from the Vikings, hence why it grows really well in Orkney. We tried to grow Bere barley down in Dunlusset Farm in Islay, and unfortunately it didn't work. So we do have like an RIP sign of Bere barley. Islay didn't like it, or Bere didn't like Islay. I don't know which one it was, but it stuck to Orkney. And from there, we've been using it since about 2007. We just really want to talk about what's important about keeping these aging grains. And also it has a place in the present, which is commercial led, different tastes, different flavors, experimentations as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you want to have a taste, I can run through the sort of tasting notes and stuff.
I should probably read some of the ones that we've got coming in already, because we've got loads and loads of tasting notes, and I've missed all of these comments. So just let me go back to the start. Malcolm Tucker will say, talking about distilleries, I can recommend the restaurant in Ardnahoe. Took myself off Islay after missing last month's tasting. Well, you're in for a treat tonight because we're talking all things that. So Joe F, I've got straw, honey, orange zest, pine, juniper, and toast on the nose. Steve Coleman Williams, straw, lemons, and some light caramel on the nose. Anthony Mullins getting honey on the nose. Joe F, my line in the notebook for nose notes is full. Peter Gilmore, fresh honey and fruit to the nose. Yes, Steve Coleman Williams telling us you employ over 5% of the island.
Yeah. So when it comes to flavor, like tasting notes and Bere, like I obviously stand behind you taste what you taste, you smell what you smell. But for me, to break down what Bere is, what we do is we're quite lucky in the way that we actually don't malt on the island at the moment. Hopefully late this year, we actually malt at Beards, who are very happy to experiment with the actual barley type itself. So thank you to Beards up in Inverness for allowing us to use the facilities. So when we get the actual Bere the Bere in, we let it sit in first fill ex-bourbon casks for 10 years. The reason why we do this is we basically want the less amount of flavor from a cask as possible, if that makes sense. Ex-bourbon is very vanilla, very caramel, but it doesn't add too much flavor. We wouldn't shove this in a sherry butt, because we know what it's going to taste like. We want less interaction with the cask as possible. So we're sitting at minimum 10 years on this. Now, for me, this is, it's super malty. It's unbelievably creamy. This viscosity of the liquid is intense, which I absolutely love, considering our stills, we have extra long lin, so we use a really slow trickle effect in our distillation. So we have a very light spirit. If anyone knows Bruichladdich, it's a very light, unpeated whiskey. Now, we have not changed our stills. We've not changed anything. We've just added the addition of Bere, and it just comes out really rich, creamy, almost kind of like banoffee pie in a weird way, like kind of marzipan. you find yourself kind of chewing it in a sweetness way, not a waxy way, but a kind of a sweetness at the back. And like everything Bruichladdich, we're sitting at 50% ABV. We make things hot. We don't lower down from 50%.
And that's how we like it, to be honest. Mike Wally is saying citrus and leather, bit of salt on the nose, just added a bit of water. Wow. Malcolm Tucker, floral notes of orange blossom, woodlands, honey. Yeah, it's not like a really thick honey. It's like a kind of floral kind of blossom honey as well, which is really nice. Anthony Moans, after a while, I'm starting to get floral gum sweets on the nose. Jeffster, certainly get the honey on the nose. There's a bit of oatmeal biscuit to it for me as well. Steve Con Williams getting honey, both taste and chewiness on the palate, almonds and Bere breath. Don't know. Sorry, Steve. You're going to have to help me out on that one. I don't know what that is, unless you're having me on. Richard Wingrove, I'm getting flowery and zesty, but not much honey personally. Your Uncle Banya, anyone else getting a whiff of wood smoke? Which is interesting.
Yeah, it's unpeated as well, but I feel for me that's the terroir talking. So we're sitting the 2012, which is the harvest from 2011. The harvest is from April to September. It's a really like Bere barley is unbelievably strong, but our harvest, and it's a quick harvest as well. It's just the yield's really small, so it doesn't get used as much. We only use about 48 tons a year, which produces on average about 320 to 400 liters of alcohol per ton. But the harvest from 2011, the weather was actually quite decent, not a lot of rain. So when you're getting that kind of oak smoke, God knows where it's coming from. But this is what's interesting about the terroir. This is why we put our vintages on them. Yeah.
There's like a saltiness as well that's coming from those, like a kind of Sierra kind of saltiness, which is really nice, giving it a bit of a savoury note as well, which I really like. Joe F, I had a whiff, a ghost of a peat smoke on the edge. Yep. So some people seem to be getting Joe P saying quite a salty finish. There's definitely a spice to the finish for me, a nice kind of like gingery kind of spice that's there as well. It's really nice. Just a little drop of H2O makes a big difference. Certainly opens up the flavour. Neat was too much for my delicate taste buds. Well, bottled at 50% ABV. There's every chance you're going to want to add a couple of drops of water to this one to open it up.
Yeah, it's something we do in Bruichladdich. We always believe you can always add more in, you can never take less out. You know, when I first went up to Isla, when I first started Bruichladdich, I was speaking to the guys up there, and honestly, we're sitting at the fire having some food, and I was like, why is everything so hot? It's just so hot. It's like, well, add a bit of water, make it your own. And it's a good point. Like, when I got into it, there's a lot of whiskies I look out there, be like, God, I wish that was 50%. Yeah. I think we've all messed up a bolognese or a curry at some point. We've added too much salt. You can always add in more, but never take less out. So.
Well, I can make it 40% now if I would like to, but you can't do that from the bottling stage if it's bottled at that, and that's too late. So I like it this way. Steve Coleman Williams is saying Bere breath is a Welsh kind of malt loaf, kind of savoury cake, Andy.
Oh, nice.
Maybe I should try that one day. I have never heard of that in my life.
We actually, some of the flavour notes that we did, what Adam Hannett did, who's now our master distiller, he did quite a lot on scones, to be fair. He got like a lot of kind of like toasted scone vibe to it as well. So I can see that with the Welsh cake.
Well, there you go. Steve, you're the same as the master distiller at Bruichladdich, just the Welsh version instead of the English version. And Guy Rickard saying, agree, a whisper of peat mixed with an oiliness. There's definitely an oily kind of, it's on the palate in particular, that kind of viscosity you were talking about. The mouthfeel is really quite oily and chewy. So, and that's really nice. And you're saying as well that the barley is providing that and is kind of giving that as well. What does the future hold for Bruichladdich? What's happening next?
Well, we have a few things like constantly innovating. So because, well, technically we have 4 brands. We have Bruichladdich, Octomore, Port Charlotte, and Botanist. When it comes to Bruichladdich, we're lucky enough now that Bere will always be there. So will the Isla, and so will the organic. When it comes to our classic laddie, that's our house style. We're also going to be releasing in next year. We're going to be releasing some age statement, which is the first time we can do since 2001. You've got to bear in mind that any age statement you see from Bruichladdich that's 20 years above is all old stock. That's stuff that we acquired when we got the distillery. So we're going to start to be able to produce some new age kind of age statements as well. We have a few releases of Black Arts coming out as well.
That's amazing. I've got one up there, which is one of my treasured bottles. I can't remember what number it is.
Oh, it's fantastic. So we have a few black arts coming out. Port Charlotte as well. We've got cask experimentals coming out as well. We have a Pommel cask, which is Bordeaux, left bank of Bordeaux wine. So we're quite lucky with Simon Coughlin and Mark Brainer. We had really good contacts for casks. So we always got a cask experimentation coming up as well. And then we have Optimo's 14s coming out later this year.
14, that's really come on.
Yeah, it's gone by really quickly. But yeah, so we have our 14s coming out this year, and we're not going to do any special releases to duty free GT on stuff. We're going to go straight, everyone can have them, so you can get your choice of all 4 of the new 14s.
Okay, that is interesting. Was it that they're different as well? They're different matting as well. They didn't have the black mat on the bottom.
Yeah. So the point. So when it comes to 14s, the 0.1s are always experimentations with American oak. The 0.2s are experimentations with European oaks. The 0.3s, which is the clear bottle, the no kind of matte, the clear bottles. They're the Optimos of Optimo. We use our Concerto 2-row barley, which is grown on Optimo farm right beside us, which is beside Optimo Spring, which is is the natural spring we use for every single drop of whiskey and gin that we do. And then your 0.4s are your virgin oaks. So usually the 0.2s went straight to duty free. Now we're just releasing them constantly now. So it's good.
Well, there's a lot there, and there's a lot of stuff for us to look forward to. So thank you very much, Bill, for chatting.
Definitely.
It's been an absolute wonderful chat. Talk all things Bruichladdich. And if you want to stick around, please do. But otherwise, thank you very much for chatting to us.
No, thank you for having me. Cheers, guys.
Wasn't that great? We're just going to double, Jess, I'm going to put you on.
Okay, yeah. What an ordeal. It's good. I managed to catch most of that, which was lovely. But hello, everyone.
Hello, here's my co-host, Jess.
The technical issues would not cease.
Just in time.
Yeah. Interesting dram, though.
Really interesting. I would love to do that as a side-by-side, I think, with the Isle of Barley and also with the organic. I find that I felt this about the Waterford stuff that we had when we had Waterford. It would have been really nice to try some from the farms.
Tasting
really do a side-by-side tasting. So there we go, pour and sippers. Maybe that can be something for next time. Right. So I'm going to actually send you off the screen.
Yeah, I'm off again.
Just want to double check.
Entirely this time.
Okay. Bye, Jess.
Bye.
So that's Jess, my co-host. And I think without further ado, it's time to welcome our next guest on. So please welcome Paul.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm basking in sunshine and, as I say, being deafened by cuckoos from outside. So I've shut all the windows so it's not distracting.
I think we all want to hear them. It really gives the kind of the unique.
No. Isle's a big attraction for them. So yeah, we'll leave them to their stuff.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit again about yourself and how you found yourself in your role and how you kind of made your way into the whiskey world and what you're doing now.
Gosh, that's gonna take a bit of time. Let's
whistle stop.
Yeah, well, whistle stop. It's quite funny. Your previous guest mentioned Bruichladdich. So I actually worked for White and Mackay. And at that time, they decided they would close Bruichladdich, and being an Isleman, they sent me over here. And I was unfortunately there the day they closed it and saw some of my school friends, a couple who still work there, saying, the distillery's been mothballed, but it was great to see it come back. And it really is. It's iconic on Islay. They're doing such a great job for whiskey and a great job for employment on the island too. So I've then been in the beer business, and then I had my own business, and then I was approached by the Laing family at Ardnahoe to see if I could help them set up the new visitor centre at the distillery. And I thought that's what I was doing. And 5.5 years later, I'm still here. So it's great. It's lovely place to be. Such an exciting prospect.
We will get onto the distillery and talk about that. But just talk to us a little bit about the Langs and Hunter Lang in particular in this example.
Yeah, okay. Well, Stuart, Scott, and Andrew, of course, set up Hunterling in 2013, and they obviously wanted to build a distillery in Islay, so they set about, trying to find land and whatnot. But meanwhile, still running the company Hunter Laing, which has the old malt cask range, the old and rare, the Hepburn's Choice, and the one we'll be tasting tonight, Scarabus, obviously. So yeah, the guys are really, really good. They're very steeped in history, steeped in the whiskey industry, and very traditional. And as we talk about the distillery, I'll tell you some about the traditional elements of it. But suffice to say, they're very, very supportive, and I think we've got a good product in the distillery and in the people there. Because I mean, as you well know, whiskey's made with everybody says it's made with three things: water, barley, and yeast. But there is a fourth very, very important thing, and that's the people. Because that is the important ingredient in the whiskey industry.
Absolutely, I love that goes into. So talk to us about the progress at the distillery and kind of where it is now and what's going on there.
Okay, well, we opened in April 2019, followed by 2 years of COVID pandemic, which was difficult.
Good timing, that.
Yeah, we worked through it, and we did online stuff. We managed to open. Our team were absolute Trojans, working with full PPE on and massive amounts of sanitizing and whatnot. But we tried our best, and people appreciated it, and they still came and visited us. And the last couple of years has just been going from strength to strength. We've got a lovely location. Unfortunately, I can't show you the view because I'm not there. I'm in my home office at the moment. But stunning view, stunning location. We've got a great team there. It's just, it's great. I'm so looking forward to what's coming next year.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about Islay as well, and we talked about how beautiful it is and how unique the landscape is. But setting up a new distillery and putting your stamp on that location, with any difficulties that you kind of arose as well with the local community, and were there things that had to be considered?
The local community was very, very embracing, of course, because there was obviously employment being provided, and we're at the stage in Islay where we've got full employment, but obviously difficulties in building the distillery because you're bringing everything in from the mainland, and when you're doing that over 2 winters, you've got weather disruptions. Then you've got this well-publicised disruptions we have just now with breakdowns and overrunning refit periods. But also, when you're building a high structure, your cranes won't work, and we do live in the windy west coast, so your cranes won't work. You've got to kind of find other things to do till you can get a quiet day to get the cranes back in. But to be fair, oh sorry, my screen's just gone blank. To be fair, they started in April 2017, and we were producing by October 2018. So that was pretty good going.
Yeah, that is absolutely pretty good going. Absolutely. Yeah. And so, I mean, how did as in Hunter Laing itself, decide about kind of break ground on Islay in particular? Why Islay?
Well, it goes back to Stuart's formative years when his father sent him to Islay to, ironically, Bruichladdich distillery to learn the craft. Mm-hmm. And like many people coming to Islay, it got under Stuart's skin, and he always liked coming back. But he made a throwaway remark when he was leaving. He said, one day if I have enough money, I'd like to build my own distillery on Islay. And at the age of 73, Stuart realised his lifetime ambition by being the custodian and opening the doors of Ardnahoe. So that's where it came from. They looked at 2 or 3 sites, mm-hmm. but the site at Ardnahoe was an absolute no-brainer. I mean, it's got water supply, it's got stunning location. It really couldn't be any better, to be honest.
Awesome. So let's try a whiskey, Scarabus. Talk to us about it.
Scarabus. Okay, so this is from Hunter Laing. Yeah, Scarabus from Hunter Laing, our parent company. Scarabus is a place name in Islay. It means stony place. And allegedly, there was an illicit distillation site there at Scarabus many, many years ago. I think there was about 55 of them in Islay at one time. So excise and customs were kept pretty busy. But so this was an expression launched by Hunter Laing to commemorate the opening of the distillery. It's from an undisclosed Islay distillery, but it's a traditional once you get your nose into the glass, you'll see it's a traditional Islay single malt. It's got a lovely kind of Islay smokiness, saltiness straight away.
And straight away, the first thing that hits me is that sea spray as well. That wonderful Islay sea spray.
It's lovely. It's not in your face. It's just it's gentle. It's almost caresses the nose.
Yeah,
and you can still pick up sweetness. The sweetness below all that.
Yeah,
I liken this to. We have many stormy, wintry days on Islay, and there's a few beaches that are just made up of stones, rounded stones, and you see the waves crashing in. And if you look along the beach, you just see this kind of mist of spray sitting above the beach. And when you walk along and your mouth's open, you're getting that lovely saltiness in your mouth. And that's what I liken this to, in that kind of the aromas that you've got coming through.
Oh, you're taking me right there at the moment. I just really feel like I'm there, not in my London flat. Instead, I'm sitting on the, walking across the shores of Islay, drinking this particular dram. That would be absolutely wonderful right now. Your Uncle Vanya, oh no, that's a different comment. Malcolm Tucker saying the cuckoos weren't there 3 weeks ago when he was there. So
they were late this year. They were very late, but in it, like everything else, the barley's late. Everything's late and coming through. The bluebells are late, so cuckoos are obviously late too.
Steve Coleman Williams is getting Christmas cake and fresh cracked peppery smoke. Malcolm Tucker tasted the Hunter Laing Journey series whilst there and purchased one, would have bought the others, but couldn't carry them home on public transport. And
just tell him if he goes online to our shop, we can send them to him.
Well, there you go.
Or your shop.
Or our shop. Remember, you do get a discount on the Pour and Sips discount
there you go.
in the store. So please head to Pour and Sip first, and then you can go to the Hunter Laing website.
Absolutely.
Green Tea is Green is saying he likes the nose on the Scarabus, smoky like an open fire with Dundee cake on the table. Joe F, pale vanilla cream, a sweet peppery peat, salted meats like gammon, a whiff of burnt toast. Jester bananas on the nose. Joe F really getting the open fire as the air is getting to it more like fresh oak logs burning. Joe P, smoky bacon crisps on the nose, making me hungry. Again, Steve Coleman Williams with frazzles. Are you aware of frazzles, Paul? The crisps?
Yes.
Absolutely. That's what we're getting, that smoky bacon note. Malcolm Tucker cured meat with wood smoke and sea salt. Peter Gilmore to the nose, sweet peat and black pepper, spice, woody smoke. Loads of comments coming in on this one.
Anybody picking up leather, new leather?
I haven't seen it yet on the thing. Is that something we should be picking up?
But I get this all the time, the new leather, and it's kind of masked almost by the vanilla, but it's stunning, absolutely stunning. I think it's just beautiful. It just comes and it goes. It's fantastic. I'm going to have a little sip because I've been swilling this around for a while. So slange everybody.
Slange everybody. I mean, the finish is absolutely wonderful. You're left with that wonderful kind of tobacco-y, kind of ashy kind of note right there. It's still going. It's still lingering there.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
It is. It's rich and it's lingering. It's sitting around the dying embers of a wooden fire, and you've got that smoke coming into your face, and it's wow, but saltiness, sweetness, sea spray, it's all there. Your gammon notes, your leather notes. It's very, very complex, but it's lovely.
It's absolutely everything you'd want from an Islay whiskey. And actually, funny enough, the first kind of the arrival of it when it first put it in my mouth, there was the sweet and smoky thing that really hit me at first. That kind of like apricot jam kind of note. It was quite fruity as well. And it really kind of married together really nicely. And I think a few people were saying that. Just going to give some Jeff's saying I've stayed at Nerabus but never heard of Scarabus until now. So yeah, that's that. Mike Wally saying yeasty bread, salt, gummy sweets on the nose. And Green Tea is Green is now getting leather on the mid-tongue in with the smoky bacon and long finish. He's now getting it after you mentioned it. It's the kind of power suggestion. Your Uncle Vanya getting freshly cut green chilies in the end.
Wow.
There we go.
Yeah.
Your Uncle
it is spicy. It is spicy for sure. Yeah.
And your Uncle Vanya definitely creamy, ashy, and sweet. Ashy is the word for me, particularly towards the end. Is that, like you said, the kind of the end of that fire, kind of burning out right there. And that's kind of those ashes kind of lingering around. That's what's kind of lingering on my palate at the end of that one.
And it's such a competitively priced dram for what it is, and the complexity and the satisfaction you're getting from this. It's wonderful at the price.
And what does this retail at usually?
I know what we are at the distillery. I think we're about 40 for the original Scarabus, 42. You might be a little cheaper than me. I have to pay a higher price than all you guys, but that's the price I pay for living in Islay. Yeah. But it's very competitively priced for a single malt. It's superb. It really is.
Absolutely. And your Uncle Banya's saying, are we going to give the guessing game a go?
You can guess away, but
he won't tell you.
Even I'm not in the know. I've got a good idea.
Well, there you go if you want to, but there's no NDAs here at Port Porridson. Mike Wally is really getting the bacon taste, and now you say it, leather, it's there. So everyone getting the leather now. A Steve Coleman Williams creamy charcuterie with burning pine on the tongue. That's a great tasting note.
Yeah, I like the creamy charcuterie.
Creamy charcuterie.
That kind of smokiness, that richness.
Is there anything you'd pair this with food-wise, like charcuteries or? You
could. There's a very nice product that you get from Great Glen. It's a venison salami, venison and green pepper salami, and it is stunning and it's beautiful paired with this. Conversely, I always like smoky, sweet whiskies with scallops. I'm a massive scallops fan, and to be honest, I'm a bit of a savage because I would eat the scallops raw and have this.
I bottled that when I was last in Islay on the boat, and the best scallops I've ever had.
Yeah,
but I refused to try them raw.
You should. You really should, because it's like taking whiskey. It's just the flavors that you get as you crush that in your mouth is stunning, absolutely stunning.
Yeah, that's one for next time. Because I did think it at the time. I was like, why didn't you try that? That was amazing. They were amazing cooked, I have to say, by the way. Probably the best scallops.
This would be the guys on Islay Sea Adventures. They're absolutely fantastic bunch of guys.
Exactly what it was. Cooking it right there on the boat was absolutely amazing.
Brilliant. But if you haven't done it, you come to Islay. If you haven't done it, do it. It's a go-to. It's fantastic.
Yeah, they were really funny as well.
Yeah,
for that barbecue.
Yeah, they are.
That barbecue is amazing. But anyway, we're getting off topic. So what does the future hold for the distillery for Hunter Lang? When can we try something from the distillery that's aged? I mean, obviously, we're still quite a way away. It's only 2019 it was set up.
Well, you might only have to wait another 12 months.
Oh, well, there you go.
Listen, the boys have always said the whiskey will tell us when it's ready. Mm-hmm. And it's beginning to tell us. And as long as it keeps developing the way it's developing, we could be looking at a 5-year-old release. We could be. There's nothing set in stone yet, but possibly festival next year, 2024, possibly. But there's nothing, as I say, nothing set in stone. But as I say, Ardnahoe itself, the single malt that we're producing, that the guys are producing. Can I just talk a little about how it's going? So, first of all, at the moment, we're buying our barley from the malters in Portel, and that's going to be changing. But we buy malted barley, peated to 40 parts per million, traditional mill. We've got a lovely Vickers Bobby mill, 103 years old. So we traditional grind into the mash tun. We use 3 waters. So it's your first water at 64.5 degrees, 10,500 litres. And we get that into the mash tun, and we rotate the rake 1.5 times, and then we leave it sitting for an hour. And we don't touch it. We just leave it sitting and soaking. We then drain it off through the underback to the washbacks. We want a clear, sweet wort. We're looking for fruitiness from the spirit. You keep agitating, you're going to get more nutty notes coming through. So then we add our second water at about 72, 73. That's, I think, 3,500, 4,000. Draw that off. So that gives us 12,500 litres of wort. So we do 2 mashes per day to give us 25,000 litres to fill 1 washback. And then we do a strict 70-hour fermentation. So first 50 hours for the conversion of sugars to alcohol, 20 hours to let the fruits develop. We use Pinnacle yeast, nice fruity yeast. We don't do longs or shorts or anything like that. We work 24/7. So it's all timed perfectly. And it's all about time, because we then load the wash still, 12,500 litres. We do a slow boil. We bring it up and we run it through big fat stills. down the longest line arms in Scotland. Never mind what Bruichladdich said, having long line arms. Ours are 8 meters long.
Okay.
We're also using worm tub condensers, so unique for Islay. That obviously has an impact on flavour. So this slow distillation, we're getting a lot of copper contact. We're removing a lot of the nasty sulphur notes. We're adding more fruitiness and sweetness at every stage. So yellow wines, they come out about 28% distillation. Second distillation, 9,500 litres in the spirit still. Again, slow distillation. So they're running about 8 or 9 litres a minute through the safe. So it's not a hard boil. That way we're getting lovely fruity notes coming through, light notes. Any reflux is happening in the still itself. It's not getting up into the line arm at all, near the line arm at all. And the result is that we get a lovely fruity spirit through from the safe. And on the nose, it's mangoes, it's pineapple, it's all these lovely rich tropical fruits. Slight hint of smoke on the nose, but not much. Then when you taste it, an explosion of sweet fruit, then the smoke comes afterwards. So it's kind of flipped on its head. You're getting sweetness and fruitiness first, followed by smoke. Obviously, that's going to be, there's more accent on that if you drop out a bit of water into it. But it's just an astonishing spirit that the guys are producing. We're using first fill bourbon casks from Heaven Hill. Good quality casks. You put good spirit in good casks, you know, you should get a good product at the end of the day. So we're very pleased with how it's developing. It's still retaining its fruitiness, its sweetness. Smokiness is developing a bit more. As I say, 40 ppm, so we've got a bit of meat in there for the smoke heads. So I look forward to it being released. There's a lot of talk about it, and I'm dying to share it with everybody that comes to the distillery. I really am. That's
yeah. I think we'll have a pour and sip trip there. Your Uncle Banya's asking, is new make available at the distillery by any chance?
We don't sell new make. Occasionally, if you're on a tasting, if there happens to be some lying about, random, or if you're a good boy, or if you're a good, entertaining or interested team that come, you know, it just very much depends on the group. As a rule, we don't sell it or let folk taste it. But you know what? You don't ask, you don't get.
Well, there you go, your Uncle Banya. You have to be part of an interesting group, and then you'll get some.
Just come and ask for me. You'll be all right.
Just come and ask for Paul. Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about all of these things. It's been wonderful to try this whiskey, and thank you so much for joining us on Pour and Sip.
Slange.
And cheers.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Right. Hello. How we're still here. You did disappear actually again.
I did. I've been having so much trouble, but I think we're back for good.
Let's take that. So, all right. So, yeah. Well, that was absolutely wonderful. Wonderful Islay whiskey there.
Delicious and exciting stuff.
Very much so. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our next guest, who is Dave. How are we doing? Again.
Good evening, man. Again, like a bad penny, I keep turning up.
Yeah, I mean, absolute pleasure to have you back, Dave. Right, I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of Jess, and I will catch you on the flip side.
See you, Andy. Oh, what have you done?
Taking myself out. Right. Goodbye, everybody.
The technical glitches have been hard and fast today. Hey, Dave, how are you doing?
I'm fine and dandy, thanks. Yeah, it's been a really good day, despite I managed to dodge the showers. I've been into London and back today to meet some people. So, yeah, got back in time and managed to dodge showers. That
was a whiskey business, I assume.
Yes, whiskey business. Always the whiskey business. It's been a good day. Yeah.
Wonderful. Love to hear that. I feel like more people don't say that.
I try and lighten it up as much as possible. Yeah, have a good day.
It's spring. The sun's out. It finally smells like spring. I don't know if everyone knows what I'm talking about, but like it's in the air now, which people with hay fever are probably cursing me at the moment.
Yeah, you can smell that. We go walking around the woods across the road here. You can smell the horse chestnut and the hawthorn, and
sounds glorious.
It is glorious, yeah.
So before we get into some Dutch whiskey to depart from Islay for a hot minute. I know, how many times have you been on Pour and Sip now, Dave?
I think probably 4.
But just in case someone has not caught one of your cameos, can you tell us a bit about yourself and how did you get here? How did you become Boutique-y Dave?
Boutique-y Dave, how did I get here? Yeah, right place, right time, I guess. Yeah, I started a whiskey blog a long, long time ago called Whiskey Discovery, and went to my first whiskey show and absolutely loved meeting everyone. And I decided I wanted to be the other side of the counter. I wanted to talk about whiskey, and managed to talk someone into letting me stand in with a show after the first year of going to lots of whiskey shows. I started working with balconies in my first gig. Learned an awful lot about standing behind the stand and pouring whiskey and talking about whiskey. And it really just sort of blossomed from there, working for various brands part-time here and there for a heel of a bottle, just for fun, just because I love whiskey. I love people. I love the industry. My background is engineering. Whiskey was a hobby. So I used to be a shipbuilder, a yacht builder. And when the marine industry crashed in 2008, I went back into heavy engineering and then developed the whiskey hobby. And just looking back, I think I had my first really terrifying boutique whiskey tasting was 6 years ago today.
Really? Today, exactly?
Exactly. I just had a Facebook reminder. You know how they come up?
Yeah. That's a good one.
And it was with the Whiskey Squad in London. And
Cool.
I did my first ever blind tasting with them, and I had custom labels. I ripped all the labels off, tore all our labels off, and I made custom Whiskey Squad labels because they always do their tasting blind. And I treated them to they always have a theme, and I was terrified because these are all my friends and peers, part of the Whiskey Squad. Whiskey Geek Squad, really. I was absolutely terrified, but it all went absolutely fabulously well. And it's just 6 years ago. I can't believe
anniversary.
It feels like it feels like forever. But I got into it like that, basically, being in the right place, volunteering for everything. I'm one of those guys who says yes for everything. When anyone asks you, "Can you do this, Dave?" Yeah, I can do that. I just stand up, volunteer for it, because you never know.
You can pour and sip 4 times.
Well, you never. Yeah, everyone says, "Can you go to here, Dave? What are you doing Wednesday? Can you go to Jersey?" Yeah, okay. That sort of thing. And it's terrifying, but at the same time, it can always lead into other things. So
it still worked out pretty well.
It's all worked out really well. I love. I mean, as a ex whiskey blogger. And it was always, Whiskey Discovery was the blog. It was always about the next one, working for a company like Atom, and certainly Boutique-y Whisky was when I first came into, who were bottling world whiskey long before lots of other people. We sort of led the way, really.
Yeah, it's funny as well because you're getting a lot of love in the comments. We've got your Uncle Vanya who's like, Dave in the house. And Richard Wingrove will never complain about you turning up too many times.
It's really lovely. Thank you very much. Good evening to you all.
But speaking of, boutique sort of leading the way in world whiskey, I guess just chat a bit about sort of like, if people don't know what an independent bottler is and like the ethos of boutique as a bottler would be really interesting to hear. Yeah,
as an independent bottler, and there are quite a few of them out there, long established independent bottlers, we don't have a distillery. Now, funnily enough, over these last 10 years, lots of these independent bottlers have bought or built distilleries. Ardnahoe, Hunter Laing, they've all got these distilleries, Cadenheads with their Springbank, Gordon MacPhail with their Ben Romack, and now their new one in Speyside. So yes, they've all gone on to take on distilleries or build distilleries, but we don't have a distillery as an independent bottler. What is our ethos at Boutique-y Whisky? I mean, we're just a group of passionate whiskey geeks, and we have this sort of ethos in us. We try something and we're bringing it to the rest of the team. Oh, you've got to try this. Really, that is in our heads all the time. And it's always, my Whiskey Discovery, everyone asks me what my favorite whiskey was. It's always the next one. It's usually the next. What's your favorite whiskey, Dave? Usually the next one. And we have that mentality as we go to a whiskey show and try something new. We want to take that back to the team. Say, oh, you got to try this. is that sort of mentality of why we bottle what we do. You know, these distilleries that you may never have heard of, and some of them you will have, of course. You know, all the Scottish ones, we've bottled lots of them. Like 78 of the 95 Scottish distilleries now,
Really?
established ones, and I think 3 of the new ones. Or there's 35, I think. Last count? No, there's more. There's more on the new book. Yeah. So we bottled a lot of the Scotch whiskies as well. Closed distilleries, all 7 of the closed Laing distilleries. So yes, we bottled, I think I counted over 200 labels now.
Wow.
Different labels for the brand. That's different whiskies, effectively.
Yeah.
So if we talk about Bruichladdich, they've got 4 Bruichladdich labels.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
We've got a label for Bruichladdich, we have a label for Octomore, we have a label for their Port Charlotte, and we also have some of their Loch and Dale, which you didn't talk about.
You're waiting. I mean, it must almost, part of me feels like when there must, like, you know, what's your favorite whiskey? It's always the next one. Like it never ends in the best way. Like there's so many to discover and so many to bottle, and when you aren't limited by your own liquid, I guess the world is really your oyster.
Yes, the world is. Yeah, it does seem to be. There's so many new distilleries. I was just reading the other day, 45 distilleries in England alone. And some of these are just tiny, you know, it's just a guy in a shed, or, you know, the same as the Australian distillers that we bottled earlier this year. You know, husband and wife, father and son, father and daughter distilleries. You know, a guy and his buddy building a distillery, tiny little distilleries, hand mashing, direct flame. So yeah, these flavors coming through are just big, bold, punchy flavors of whiskey that's very different, but just delicious.
Yeah.
So it's always good to be able to find. I've been blown away by some of the whiskey that we've got from Germany, from Finland. Finland has blown my brains out. For, I mean, such a young industry that only were allowed to distill, I don't know, it's 8 years ago.
Really?
10 years ago? Not that long ago. Most of the stuff that we bottled has been very, very young.
It's known for itself in such a short time.
Yeah. They really have. Just wow, this is just amazing. Some of this world whiskey coming out. Yeah.
Well, I mean, today we are talking about the Netherlands because we've got our Millstone from, is it Zuidam? Am I saying that right?
Zuidam, yeah. Patrick Millstone Distillery. There's a Zuidam Distillery in this beautiful little village on the edge of Belgium and the Netherlands. In fact, the town, if you Google Millstone Distillery and look at it on Google Maps, you will see the town has borders all around the streets. So there's parts of Belgium, and it's inland by about, I don't know, about 10-15 minutes from the Belgian border, up near Turntable. And this town is split, like there is borders across the pavements, and part of the town is Dutch and part of the town is in Belgium, which is really quite weird. But yeah, Google it, look at it on Google Maps, and you'll see all these little borders all around this village. Yeah, bonkers.
So it's almost a bit of luck that this is Dutch and not Belgian.
Yeah, it could be either.
It's so close.
So this is probably one of the older distilleries, certainly making whiskey in Europe, I would say. Okay. Yeah, definitely, because we bottled a 25-year-old from them not so long ago. The distillery was founded in 1975, and they started making whiskey in the late 90s. So, So the family, Patrick and his brother's father, started the distillery. He was a distiller. He came from a background of distilling Dutch spirits, so Geneva and other Dutch spirits. But it's Patrick's obsession with whiskey that they started to make whiskey. Patrick grew up in a distillery. He's the current distillery manager. He grew up in the distillery as a kid. That was his playground.
Wow.
Most of the time, as his chores was cleaning the distillery, because he was small enough to get into a still. I mean, just if you can get Patrick onto one of these pour and sips, he will not stop telling you all these stories. It's wonderful to listen to. Such a lovely guy. He made his first spirit cuts at the age of 12.
What?
Yes. This man grew up in a distillery.
Whiskey in his blood.
He has whiskey in his blood. He's just, I've tasted lots of different liquids, spirits from this guy, and everything he touches is golden. So yes, they make great rum, they make great single malt, they make great rye whiskey. Some of the best rye whiskey in the world comes from this distillery, and they also make some really superb Geneva, because they use the rye grains, and you can taste the grain in the Geneva. So it's just like drinking New Make, and everyone knows I love drinking New Make. And so this distillery, he's passionate about pot stills. So he has a multitude of pot stills. He's passionate about fermentation, and these fermentations is something like 7 days in temperature controlled fermenters, but 20 to 24 degrees, and this allows those sort of fruity esters to come through. So it's a long fermentation. Distillation, very, very high cut points. So we're getting very light and more floral esters coming through on these cut points. He uses lots of small stills, and these small stills have a very high surface area in comparison to the amount of low wines being distilled. So he underfills, so there's lots of copper content, and this allows you to get this complex and fruity esters coming through, which is what you're getting in here.
Yeah, it's
really fruity.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, I don't think I've smelled a whiskey like this before.
And what I get from his distillation, and because the rye is equally as mental with the fermentation as well, and you use a 50% malted and 50% unmalted rye mash bill, which is very, very unusual. But those long fermentations, those distillation cuts, you get the same sort of character from the rye, and I can nose it in the rum too, and that's that. For me, it's like a wild fennel.
It's fennel, isn't it? I was going to say it's
fennel.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's a wild fennel that comes through. It just takes me to the volcano on Tenerife. They'll tell you. I mean, if you go there in the right time of year, the whole place is just covered in fennel, and it's just the smell of it is just amazing.
That sounds magical. What a like evocative memory.
Yeah, you know, whiskey is evocative of memories, and that's where it takes me every time. Just great summer holidays on.
And I would say that this is peated, but it doesn't. The peat is, for me, underneath everything else. It's not super obvious.
No.
Super obvious.
So the middle cut of this, the cut that he takes ends at 68%. So really quite high. He takes a very, very high cut. This is 50 to 60 ppm in the malt. So that's higher than Kalila. This is Kalila Lagavulin is about 35, I think it is. Port Charlotte is around 50, about the same as Port Charlotte, but they use a much, much higher cut. So you get a really elegant malt.
Oh, right. So the higher cut point means that the peat is a bit more subdued.
Yes, you get a much more floral notes coming through.
Yeah,
and it's not.
We're getting some great tasting notes coming through as well. Your Uncle Vanya gets sort of like rye bread or like a sour ale type note. We've got Joe F with green tea. I feel like that's that herbal fennel note coming through. Yeah. He's got orange zest, like peat sweetness and vanilla yogurt. Malcolm Tucker, orange oil. That citrus is coming back again. Sherry soaked raisins, dried strawberries, hints of smoke. Wow, there are so many. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, it'll be unusual for you put these into. I love doing blind tastings. Ever since doing that tasting 6 years ago, I did lots of blind tastings as my introduction to boutique-y whiskey, because I think it just takes those preconceptions away. You can sneak in a 3-year-old German whiskey and let it stand up against old Scotch, and people go, "What? What?" Yeah, I love doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like tricking people. It's just taking away their.
I'm never there to catch anyone out. I mean, no one can. Trying to guess blind tasting it's a lot of fun, but you can't take the piss out of anybody for doing it, because everyone can get it wrong, because your head will just take you in a direction. That's what whiskey does. But if you take that label off, now you haven't got a direction to say, I'm going to Germany. Oh, Germany can't be any good. It's only 4 years old. It can't be any good. Once upon a time, 8 years old was an extra old whiskey, and it's not that long ago.
Yeah. And, you know, countries differ so much in, you know, production methods and temperature and all these things that, you know, it's not like for like at all.
No.
I mean, I wonder how many people have tried Dutch whiskey before today.
I urge you to try more. This is a family business. It is very much a family business. Obviously, mum and dad have retired. They do grow much of their own grains, although the distillery has grown significantly from when they started with just one copper pot still. I think they have 8 copper pot stills. They still make all of the spirits, and it's sort of 50% of its whiskey, 50% of its other spirits. And they do actually use a bit of wind power. They used to use wind power, the Dutch windmills, to grind their grain.
That's very
It was
cool.
100%, but they just can't keep up now, so it's not anymore. Yeah.
But they still use them.
They still use them, yeah. They still have their, and we have that on our label. I don't know if you can see our label. We have Patrick as Willy Wonka.
Oh,
Instead of the river of chocolate, it's a river of whiskey, and we've got all the sort of stills in the background.
of dreams.
Just a brilliant.
I haven't had a taste of this yet, so cheers.
Cheers.
It's suddenly super like spicy and chocolatey for me. It's much less herbaceous and green.
It's lots of there's lots of those that it's just delicious all the way through, but it's that that gentle smoke does start to drift in and out. I did have one a little bit earlier, I must admit. But it's really beautifully balanced.
Oh wow, so some more notes. We've got Mike Wally with olives and linseed on the nose. Is that weird? No, you get what you get. Peter Gilmore. Oh, he's seen the town. So that's very cool. Peter's been to the scene of the crime. Your Uncle Vanya getting more rye bread than strawberry and cherries and dark chocolate. I'm with you there, your Uncle Vanya.
Yeah.
Anthony Mullins, the Peter's there, but subtle on the taste. Coffee's coming through. Goes well with the packet of chocolate buttons I'm slowly making from the other half. I can see chocolate going with us so well. And Steve Coleman Williams actually, this whiskey reminds him of the new Caramilk from Cadbury's. So this is definitely like a very chocolatey, would go with chocolate, tastes like chocolate. And I'm guessing, is that more of the PX casks?
This is from 2 PX hogsheads. Now, this is the other thing that Patrick is passionate about is sherry casks. And we're not talking about seasoned sherry casks like the rest of the industry use. These are ex-Bodega casks. So he takes them out. I mean, we had a beautiful 25-year-old, which was probably one of his oldest casks a little while ago. This for our birthday, and that was from a cask that will be over 100 years old. It's been sat in a Solara. So these are ex-Solara. This is where 90% of his casks, for his malts coming from these sort of big sherry ex-Solara. So they've been used to mature sherry rather than season. He's tried seasoned casks and didn't really get on with them, not the whiskey. He wants these sherry casks that have been well used.
That must be hard to source though, because I mean, sherry bodegas don't really, like you said, they keep casks for 100 years.
Very, very difficult.
So that must be difficult.
Yeah.
But very impressive and makes incredible whiskey.
Yeah. So this is not the highest. This is, I think, said 40 to 50 ppm in the malt. He does do a higher. It's like a 65%, which you will taste the peat. This is just a much more elegant style of peated whiskey. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Yeah, no, really, it's lovely. Yeah, we were departing from Islay, but not from the peatiness.
Yeah, this will be Highlander peat. So this is from crisp. The malt will be from crisp maltings. So it's not Islay peat, it'll be Highland peat. Yeah.
I see. Oh, amazing. Oh, that's really interesting. You mentioned briefly about, like, well, you showed us the label. I feel like such a big part of boutique-y is the labels, you know, like so much work goes into them. And also they're just not like any other brand or distillery. Like how do you get them? How do you design them?
we try. Well, certainly with the Scotch labels, we look for stories, old stories of old, ghost stories of the distillery, and we try and feature them into shockingly bad puns. So we look for their Gaelic names sometimes, and then do something like that. I feel like Glenallachie means like a rocky place, and that's when we ended up with the Fish as a rock band. So shockingly bad puns. Patrick is I think every distiller's favorite distiller. He wins Distiller of the Year so many times in the World Whiskies Award. And because he touches so much, we thought, well, he's a bit of a Willy Wonka. You know, he is a Willy Wonka of distillation, which is why we ended up with a Willy Wonka scene on this label. But yes, we certainly with the New World whiskies, we like to work with the distillers, because most of them are quite young distilleries, quite new distilleries, and we want to feature them and their stories. So we always talk to them for a story. For the Scotch, we can make it up as we go along, because there's so much history with a lot of the Scotch whiskies. But yeah, we have an idea. It all started off in the founder's head, and it's gradually evolved into the whiskey team. And we have a regular, like a weekly label meeting where we're discussing what we're going through. You know, we've got some new themes coming out soon, and we've just finished a collection of whiskies for later on this year, which is just stupid label. I mean, just so silly. I just love them. We've just gone for a whole new theme of whiskies.
Tell us any more. It's all very secret.
They're very, very secret at the moment, but there is a new collection coming out next Friday.
Next Friday.
Next Friday, we have a new collection of whiskies with a whole series of 10 new labels that are all very much aligned, and that's going to be a collection of American whiskies.
So exciting.
And baseball might be involved.
Might be. I mean, I've seen it in action. There are some good baseball content coming up, so everyone needs to keep their eyes
some
peeled.
bonkers baseball action coming up.
This is getting a lot of love, by the way, in the comments. Like Neil Bolton, it's probably his favorite of the three. Your Uncle Vanya agrees with Neil. Jester, it's pudding in a glass. I've got a bottle in order. Yes, Jester. Paul Murray loves this one. Richard Wingrove, this is a great dram. Was not expecting the range of flavor. So, mission accomplished. I feel like, people might not necessarily reach for a 4-year-old Dutch whiskey, and actually it's pleasantly surprised everyone.
Yeah. It's something you wouldn't ordinarily just grab. I think the first batch we ever did was a 5-year-old. This was a 4-year-old. We did a 3-year-old rye, and I say we had a 25-year-old, which he's gave us. He sold us a cask, special cask. One of his earliest casks for our 10th birthday last year, which was just spectacular. It's opaque; you can't see through it. And I was expecting, oh my God, I look at the color and I'm thinking, am I going to be eating pencils here? Am I going to be eating wood? But no, because of this cask was so old, it was a really beautiful whiskey. It hadn't been overwooded at all. It was just sherry through. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that would mellow it more than influence it, in that if the wood is that sort of old and well used.
Yeah. I'm glad that everyone loves it. Yeah, it is one of my favorite distillers. Like I say, he's just one of the nicest people in the world. And if you
it always helps when you're drinking.
He's just passionate about distilling, about casks. I asked him if he'd got 10 minutes to talk to me about rye, and he said, "Try and stop me. And so, yeah, I urge you to call him.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like exactly the kind of person we need on Pour and Sip. Yeah. We've just had Steve Coleman Williams say, I have to say, given the age of this one, Pour and Sip really does deserve an award for ending whiskey snobbery. The whiskey is lovely. And Richard has agreed with him and said, before Pour and Sip, I would have avoided a 4-year-old Dutch whiskey. It's opened my eyes. And I feel like I wish I could take all of the credit with Pour and Sip, but this is obviously a boutique-y masterpiece. And a Millstone masterpiece.
This is what boutique does. We come away with we go to these whiskey events around the world, and we meet new distillers, and we taste their stuff and think, crikey, this is now we have a buyer that we can send out and say, right, off you go. Go and find some whiskey, come back with it. We've got a great relationship with Millstone, and hopefully we're building more and more of these relationships around the world.
You were talking about that you've obviously got some new series in the pipeline. Was this part of a series, this one?
This was originally part of our World Whiskies. It was a very big batch. We put 2 hoggies together, so it was about 1,700 bottles, where most times, and we took it down to 49% rather than leave that at cask strength. So sometimes we've generally started going more to cask strength because that's what people have been asking for us. So generally, when you see, we've started identifying them. It's something Boutique-y never did. We never said it was single cask. It was never important to us. In fact, when we first started as Boutique-y Whiskey, we never even put an age statement on because that wasn't important to us. But we believe, we listened, and people do need that age statement on there, and they want that age statement. So we started putting age statements on. We always used to dilute them to a bottling strength that we thought was perfect for drinking. We never said, some of them would have been cask strength, some of them wouldn't. This one wasn't. We took this one down to 49%. And but yes, generally we've more or less started most of them coming out at cask strength these days, unless we think it's just far too hot at cask strength, and then we'll take it down.
Oh wow, that's really interesting. I love that you don't have a sort of blanket rule because one size doesn't fit all whiskies across the world.
No, absolutely not.
And somehow we've been talking for way too long.
Oh, I always do.
I mean, I think Andy will probably come back and we'll have a little chat afterwards and make everyone pick their favourites. Which, do you know what? So far, I'm thinking Millstone could be high in the running, but I feel biased because I got to talk to you about it.
Hello.
Hey, Andy.
How's it going?
Very, very well, thank you. How are you?
Lovely. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that. Great.
Yeah, I've never really had a whiskey like that before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Really fruity. Wonderful stuff. Right. Very conscious of time, and we've still got 2 drams to go.
We will speed through these ones. And obviously, if you're sipping along with us at home, do you not feel like you have to try these tonight? I feel like after 3 PT whiskies, well, 2 PT whiskies, sorry. It's a lot for the taste buds and also just for you.
Absolutely. So quick bye to Dave. Thank you again, as always.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm going to get the right person to take off this time. Just make sure it's Dave. Yeah.
I would hate to be in control of that.
Yeah, it's really high pressure situation here that's going on here. And let's have a little quick whistle stop tour of the last 2 drams. Remember, as Jess was saying, please don't feel like you have to drink these now. You can savor them. Just listen to us and drink them next time at your leisure. Yeah. So what ones were we starting with?
So we have a Lagavulin 8-year-old, I believe.
Sure.
Which is your designated dram.
It's my designated dram. Lagavulin. So one of Scotland's oldest distilleries. There was illicit distilling on site, placed back to like about 1742. And the Lagavulin 8-year-old was being produced as far back as the 1880s when Alfred Barnard, who was revered author of the Whiskey Distilleries of the United Kingdom, famously called it exceptionally fine. And this is now a core bottling. They originally released it as like a special edition celebration of its 200th anniversary in 2016, but now it's a regular bottling. Lagavulin, obviously wonderful, one of the big 3, I think we say, of Islay, along with Ardbeg and Lafroig. Also made famous because of Ron Swanson and Parks and Rec. Indeed. Probably the reason it's got quite so popular as well in recent years. And this is about 48% ABV, and it's been matured in refill European and American oak casks and is only 8 years old. So yeah, there you go. I think it's their youngest from the core bottlings. So please expect lots of peat from one.
More peat if you hadn't had enough.
More peat if you haven't had enough. Yeah, absolutely. But this is a wonderful dram actually. So really quite a soft Lagavulin, I have to say. It's not like a in comparison for me, in comparison to like the 16.
Okay.
Yes, much sweeter.
Yeah. Lovely. Sweeter side of peat.
Yes, absolutely.
And then we're rounding off with pretty new actually on the Scotch whisky scene, which is track 3 from Turntable Spirits, which was founded by a pair of brothers, Gordon and Ali Stevenson. And they both just have mountains of 20 years to be precise of experience between them, sort of in all the different areas of the whiskey industry really. And I guess they thought, let's stop making other people's whiskey and let's blend our own. So it's a blended whiskey. I think they're quite transparent about as well what goes into it. So this is I hope I say these right, I always get nervous. This is a blend of Balmanac, Craigellachie, and Invergordon grain from a range of different sherry casks. We've got Pedro Jimenez and Oloroso in there, I think. So this is probably one of the fruitier ones that we would have sipped this evening. Obviously, got the grains of lightness and sweetness in there. But I would say, this is a really interesting blended Scotch, actually, and it's really nice to know where the components come from, because often I don't think
going down the compass box route.
Exactly. Yeah.
Letting us all know everything about them.
Yeah, where it's from, the percentage of each whiskey, the cask type. So if you like to get a little geeky into your blends, this is definitely for you. And also, it's got a lovely sherried sweetness in there as well. So that seems like this is a chocolatey and a chocolate whiskey. Like have it with your dessert and enjoy.
That sounds good to me.
Wonderful.
Yes, wonderful stuff. Right, I think that we've drunk a lot of whiskey tonight, but I'm going to invite our guests back. A lot of great whiskey, I have to say. And I think some of our guests, Dave has no excuse because he was literally just off for a minute. Paul is back and Bill is back as well.
Well, on stage. Thank
the whole
you.
gang is back together. Would you look at that? How are we doing, guys? Everyone good?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah.
Just very jealous I couldn't try the rest of the drams, I'm not going to lie.
Did we not send you a box?
Oh, well, that's me hinting at more for sure.
Yeah.
No, we're going to have to sort you out with that.
Had you tried this turntable track before?
No. So, more whiskey the better. I don't know if my floorboards could take more bottles, but I mean, it'd be all right.
Sounds interesting. Balmenac's a fantastic dram, and we actually do a little blending experience at the distillery for guests, and it's really good fun. It's good fun to play around with. But there's a couple of drams from Dalmenach and Dalnewen, Balmenach and Dalnewen, just both stunning drams that you just don't see a lot of.
Yeah,
which is a shame. So, Jess, do you want to ask the question? The question.
Well, I mean, I guess actually, no, I can't ask it on here because not everyone had the drams, but to everyone sipping along with us, it's that time of the night again where we are being mean and making you choose your favorite out of the 5 whiskies that you have, 3 whiskies that you definitely tried. And if you happen to try the others and they're in the running, then please let us know. But yes, and none of this I can't choose. We need answers.
Yeah, and like I said, our guests won't be offended except for Paul, clearly rooting.
Just over here, I've got a Bruichladdich. There it is. There, it's a Bruichladdich Isle of Barley proof plate in a frame up there. So,
Dave's rooting for the other team.
That was very, very good. That was Isle of Barley 2004. 2004.
Wow.
Very good.
Wow. I don't think I've even tried that, to be honest with you. There's a lot of Bruichladdich, especially in the early years. There's so many SKUs. I can't keep up in the early years. So there's always more to try.
I've probably got one in the cupboard behind me as well, because
I was going to say I reckon you got
very
a lot.
friendly with Jim McEwen, and fortunate enough to taste some of his early black arts as well. So
brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Is there anything? I mean, other than obviously your own bottles, is there anything else that you've tried that's been interesting with you of late? I'll start with you, Bill.
God, you really put me on the spot now, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think for me, my local distillery for me is Clonleash, so anything from there is very delicious for me. Anything from Bere, but also Glenord as well, Singleton. So that even for me, those 2 at the moment is kind of I'm not gonna lie. Actually, I was back home for a month, and that's pretty much all I was drinking. I don't think I touched Bruichladdich for ages, just drinking Clonleash, but Glenord as well. Singleton for me is kind of a go-to right now for me. So yeah.
Awesome. And yourself, Paul?
I'm being greedy. I've got a couple of good ones just now. One is an Old Malt Cask shop exclusive. It's Jura 15-year-old, and it's in a first fill American oak. And it's absolutely stunning. I've never tasted a Jura like it before. It's fruity. It's got bags of vanilla in it. It almost tastes like a whiskey 10 years older than it. It's beautiful. The other one is one of the Hepburn's Choice range. It's a Bere, and it's in a port cask, and that is really, really quite interesting. I think it's 10-year-old. It's the new Hepburn's Choice labelling. Really nice dram, very easy to drink. And our team in the shop are getting a lot of ladies buying it, obviously, because it's a really good kind of introductory one to whiskey. But Bere is a lovely complex whiskey in its own. So,
absolutely lovely stuff. How about you, Dave?
Well, I'm very fortunate that my little girl, my oldest daughter, works for Nicknean. So I've tried some of the Nickneans, which have been very, very good. Yeah. We get lots of world whiskies coming across this as well, which I've mentioned earlier. Some of the countries that have been really blowing me away. But yeah, this is a young Nicknean.
Have we had Nicknean before on here?
We have.
I think we have.
I'm pretty sure we have, but
Yes, you have, because I was on that one with Annabelle. Yeah, a long time ago.
Oh, she was on. Dave, you've been on all of them now. I mean, you might as well start presenting it. Right. So there are a lot of votes coming in. So I don't know how.
You know what? This might be the most clear it's ever been.
Really?
Which dram has won?
Okay.
One,
Lagavulin 8, so you can all.
It's the Millstone. We've got.
Okay, there you go.
We've got Malcolm, Guy, Joe, Neil, another Joe, all voting for Millstone. Steve Coleman Williams, he was like, I've never seen a unanimous winner like this. Your Uncle Vanya, his vote goes to Scarabus, although he also loves the Bere Barley. And I mean, some people are being diplomatic and saying that all three were equally delicious. So,
which is the obvious answer, really. It's the
really, yes.
Obvious,
I'm sorry for what I said.
Wow, that really is, yeah. Richard Wingrove, tough choice as usual. We'll go for the Millstone with the Bruichladdich second. Your Uncle Vanya Scarabus was a great intro for me. Love Bere Barley for years, so coming back to it to buy with a discount. Millstone ordered as well. Turntable and Lagavulin. I've got bottles of those already. Anthony Mullins, how many times do I have to say that I don't like peaty drams? But Millstone and Lagavulin are an equal fantastic first. What? so I don't like peaty drams, but I love Lagavulin. Okay, closely followed by Scarabus. Okay, Neil Bolton. Yep, we've had Nicknean on. C. Coleman Williams. Yep, we've had it. Everyone remembers all this stuff better than me, clearly. And Neil Bolton, all three genuinely good. And Richard Wingrove saying 2 at least, Huntress and another from Nicknean. So clearly I'm forgetting this.
Yeah, we've done, you've been doing it for a while, Andy. If you remember,
I've been doing this for a while, and there's probably quite a few drams that we've tried over the course of all this time. So allow me to forget which battles we've had on here and which ones we haven't. So yeah, absolutely. So it's been a wonderful evening tonight with some wonderful drams.
Thank you, everyone.
I enjoyed all of them, so I couldn't possibly pick a favourite.
I would have enjoyed the others, I'm sure.
You would have. Is that saying if you had a box to try?
If we had a box, I would have loved the Bruichladdich. They would have been fantastic. That's all I'm going to say.
It would be interesting to have our guests.
I was listening along. I was thinking, oh God, I should have got a set. Should have ordered a set.
Well, that's one for Giovanna and Jake. I'm sure they can sort something out for next time. For next month, Dave, when you're on again. Okay, so thank you very much, and join us next time for our tasting on the dress.
I am so sorry, I don't know the dates in June yet.
Do you want me to tell you? You want me to tell you?
It's in Dave's diary already. Yes, I'm so sorry you put me on the spot there. No,
because I don't know either. So
yes, we've looked foolish, Andy. We should know this information.
We should. I'm going to guess the 8th, but
yeah, it's not. If that's the second that.
Yeah,
it's the 8th.
Don't quote me on it. But,
I can't do the 8th. Sorry.
So it's not going to be on the 8th anymore, obviously, if they can't do it.
It'll be the end of June.
The end of June. All right, guys. Well, whenever it is, we will see you then, and we look forward to seeing you. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Thank you to all our wonderful guests that we've had tonight.
Thank you for having us.
You are very welcome, Paul, and thank you, Jess, for joining us at your leisure whenever you fancied it. And we will see you soon. So cheers, everybody.